hasn't been in my lifetime a movement as radical as the Bernie Sanders-led progressive movement. It took me by surprise. 2 years ago, if you were to say, hey, there's going to be a big communist element and it's going to get traction, I went, what are you talking about, Albania?
But who's a communist? Who's a communist?
Bill O'Reilly went on Chris Cuomo's News Nation show and delivered a masterclass in red-baiting hysteria that would have made Joseph McCarthy proud. O'Reilly claimed there hasn't been a movement as radical as Bernie Sanders' progressive movement in his lifetime, completely ignoring the fact that he spends every day simping for Donald Trump, who is currently leading the most authoritarian, fascist-adjacent movement in modern American history. O'Reilly called Bernie Sanders the most dangerous man in the country and said universal childcare is somehow a communist plot to control children and turn them into left-wing replicants. He also claimed progressive candidates like Abdul El-Sayed are communists and a danger to public safety. Chris Cuomo pushed back, calling O'Reilly a Red Scare guy from 1955. But the host, Chris on Culture, rightly points out that O'Reilly is a discredited propagandist who got fired from Fox News for good reason, and his entire argument is based on fearmongering, not facts. The irony is staggering. O'Reilly calls Daycare radicalizing, while the MAGA movement is literally trying to dismantle democracy.
All right, let's bring in Bill O'Reilly. Good to have you. Bill, last night, Dr. El-Sayed wins in Michigan. His platform becomes this call and response that he does every time he speaks. Get money out of politics, put money in people's pockets, pass Medicare for all. And he says, I am a capitalist and I care about Michigan. And he beat the Democratic incumbent that they were pushing on him from the House to run for Senate. He was outspent 8-1. He still won. You say he's a gift to Mike Rogers. How?
Well, because the Republicans will coalesce around Rogers. There's not going to be a lot of dissent in that party. There will be dissent in the Democratic precincts. Look, politicians say what they want to say. You know that. If you look back at El-Sayed's previous statements about the border, about the police, it's clear the man is a radical progressive. Now, whether he's a communist or a socialist, doesn't matter much to me. He's a danger, in my opinion, to public safety. I don't care what he says. You can say anything you want if you're a politician. But what he has put out there is certainly as radical as it gets. Open borders, my God. Did he not see the Spanish thing? But
he says he's not in favor of open borders. He says he's in favor of abolishing ICE as currently constructed because they're violating the law. But I got to correct the record for the audience, right? Because he doesn't say open borders. So when you say open borders, oh my gosh, no, I don't.
The record
has
changed
have to correct what you're saying.
5 times. No, the record has changed 5 times.
I mean, if that were the basis, there'd be a lot of lawmakers that aren't in office, and I don't know that it's changed.
I don't do the
5 times with El-Sayed. I know you don't. I know you don't because we know why. Okay. We know why you don't. I wouldn't if I were you either. I know you don't.
Okay, and you'd be smart not to because it's an infantile way to analyze the news.
No, it's a way to hide from who's the president. Go ahead.
Okay, now let me make a couple of points. I'll say it started as a very, very radical person, and then he kind of morphed into not so radical. So to say and take at face value what he's saying now is a leap of faith, to use a cliche. But it doesn't really matter, does it? Because the Democratic Party, as you pointed out, doesn't like him. They don't want him. They don't want people like him. Whether he's a true radical or not, it is just spoiling the whole Democratic message. So you have to assume, and African-American votes will be big on this, you have to assume that the Democratic Party is going to fight among itself, while the Republican Party is not. They're going to coalesce around him. They're going to demonize him. They're going to say this is Bernie Sanders light. That's what they'll do. And that will drive people to the poll. Now, who wins? A lot of outside money will come in, a lot. And it's up to people to evaluate the histories of Rogers and El-Sayed. That's what you have to evaluate what they have said in the past, okay? And then make a determination, because politicians will tell you anything you want to hear, Cuomo, and you know that.
Look, I mean, if it were a veracity contest, our elections would come out very differently than they have in the near past. What I'm saying is, I don't think that analysis makes sense in the general. It makes sense in the primary. But now the Democrats, you just saw, everyone who ran against them was standing behind El-Sayed. The party says they're fully with him. now. And you can see that as hypocritical. You can see that as whatever you want to see it. But in the general, they have a registration advantage. It's a Democratic seat, right? Peters is abandoning the seat, right? The sitting senator. Right. And Mike Rogers is not exactly a new and shiny thing. He is a MAGA, establishment guy.
Look, I don't know much about Rogers, but I do know that the latest polls say. And they've got him either tied or within one of El-Sayed. And so it's going to be a close race.
Or up. But remember, El-Sayed has been getting his ass kicked by his own party. Now that's going to change. Now they're not going to say the same things.
That will continue. That will continue.
Why?
Because the smart Democrats don't want to be tied to Bernie Sanders's aggressive, communist, socialist, whatever you want to label it, movement. They don't.
Well, he says he's a capitalist, but they'd rather lose a Senate seat.
Loser.
They'd rather lose a Senate seat.
There's a lot of people going to stay home. And the African-American vote, which I'm studying now, progressives do very poorly. Even in New York City, they didn't do nearly as well as they thought they would with Mandani. I don't know why exactly, but we're looking at it. But when you have a divided party against a party that is together, that is an advantage for the party that is together.
Yeah, I don't know that your assumption is right, but you're right. Being divided is harder than being united. I agree with you in a bipartisan system. What I'm saying is, it's one thing in the primary. Look, we see this all the time, which is in the primary we hate each other, but then when it's against the other guys, especially in this toxic twosome that our party politics is, we got to come together because the last thing we want is, as Democrats would say, is another Trumper, especially in a blue seat. Well, so I don't understand that motivation.
Then I will enlighten you. There hasn't been in my lifetime a movement as radical as a Bernie Sanders-led progressive movement. It took me by surprise. 2 years ago, if you were to say, hey, there's going to be a big communist element and it's going to get traction, I went, what are you talking about, Albania?
But who's a communist? Who's a communist? Who's a communist?
Look, the means of production is what people like Mandami want to control. All you got to do is look it up, okay? The means of production. They want to control that.
He's the mayor of New York City. He's the mayor of New York City. He has done nothing to take away private property. He's taxing. He's doing other things that he said he was going to do when he was running. But this socialist thing, let alone communism, there's not a communist country on the face of the planet.
I know you don't buy it.
It's a boogeyman.
It's quite clear you don't buy it. People believe what they want to believe. But he's frozen rents, in New York City. That's the first step. Now he wants grocery stores to undercut other grocery stores. The guy is called classic Marxist person. Yesterday, it was amazing because
he's the mayor of New York City. He's not the entire party, right? I mean, it's like you can have a guy who is out there, but the people where he ran wanted him. No, but I'm saying that why do you think that that's going to... I know, but why do you think that that will affect all Democratic races, one mayor? Because
it's basically a radical movement. When a Bernie Sanders, who's the most dangerous man in the country, he goes out and says, we want to control children. Okay? We want to control children. And you're going, okay. That's what they do in every communist country. So they want what that means.
When did Bernie Sanders say we want to control? Yeah.
He said it yesterday. Universal child care. Okay?
Yeah.
What universal child care is you take the tyke at age 4 or 5. He goes through a system of left-wing academia. He comes out into Columbia University, and presto, you've got a little replicant running around spouting Bernie Sanders stuff.
You sound like a Red Scare guy from 1955.
That is what they do.
All right.
What?
Bill, thank you for making your case. It was Dusty saying I got to go. But look, I get your theory of the case. We'll see how it plays out, and we'll see it together. Thank you for being with us.
Bill O'Reilly's appearance on Chris Cuomo's show was a pathetic, fear-mongering performance from a man who has long since lost any credibility he once had. Here's a guy who got fired from Fox News amid sexual harassment scandals, who spent years enabling a president who is now tearing apart the Constitution, and he has the audacity to call Bernie Sanders the most dangerous man in the country. The projection is staggering. The most dangerous man in the country is currently sitting in the Oval Office, surrounded by fascist-adjacent sycophants, dismantling alliances, starting forever wars, and selling access to foreign governments. But O'Reilly's worried about universal childcare? Give me a break. The red baiting is particularly insulting. O'Reilly keeps throwing around words like communist and socialist as if they're insults, while conveniently ignoring that every single progressive policy he's attacking, Medicare for all, free college, universal childcare, taxing the ultra-wealthy, is overwhelmingly popular with the American people. He called universal childcare radicalizing children, as if daycare is some kind of left-wing indoctrination camp. It's not. It's a basic service that allows parents to work and contribute to the economy while their kids are safe and cared for. But O'Reilly can't acknowledge that because he's not interested in policy. He's interested in fear. And let's talk about the hypocrisy of O'Reilly, claiming progressives are communists while simping for Donald Trump, a man who has praised dictators, attacked the free press, and attempted to overturn a free and fair election. Trump and his MAGA movement are the most radical political force in modern American history. They are actively trying to dismantle democratic norms, roll back civil rights, and install loyalists who will do their bidding regardless of the law. But O'Reilly is silent on all of that. He's not worried about fascism. He's worried about free childcare. It's absurd, and Chris Cuomo was absolutely right to call him a Red Scare guy from 1955. Bill O'Reilly is also completely out of touch with the Democratic Party's base. He claims progressives do very poorly with black voters, but that's just not true. Progressives have strong support among young voters and voters of color who are tired of establishment corporatism and want real change. The Democrats who are winning, AOC, Bernie Sanders, and now candidates like Abdul El-Sayed, are winning because they're offering something different, genuine solutions to real problems. O'Reilly and his ilk can keep throwing around the word communist all they want, but voters are smarter than that. They see through the fear-mongering. So here's the bottom line. Bill O'Reilly is a discredited relic of a bygone era who has nothing to offer but fear, lies, and smears. The Red Scare tactics he's using are the same ones that ruined innocent lives in the 1950s, and he should be ashamed of himself for reviving them. But he's not ashamed, because he has no shame. That's what happens when you've been enabled by a corrupt media ecosystem for decades. The good news is that people like Chris Cuomo are pushing back, and progressive candidates like Abdul El-Sayed and Francesca Hong are winning despite the attacks. The future is not Bill O'Reilly's fear-mongering. It's healthcare, childcare, and housing for all. And we're not going to let a washed-up Fox News has-been stop us. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever.